It's time for Ogre School. Let's get started.
So far for your reflective journals, I have required you to find articles from either the Gale or the EBSCO databases. I'm sure we all realize that not everything you can find on the internet is trustworthy. Part of the value of these databases is that you can be reasonably sure that what you find there is not complete trash. That said, the databases are limited. For some topics, they have very few articles. So, starting this week, I am allowing you to use other sources. Obviously, this has some potential issues. We all understand that the internet is full of crap, at least I hope we all do. When you are looking for information on the internet, you need to be careful. Ultimately, there is no perfect way to be 100% sure that the information you are getting is accurate. But there are a lot of things you can do to limit the likelihood that you are duped. If you do a reflective journal using a source that is not from one of the databases, you will be asked some questions about your source to show that it is actually a good source to use. Let's talk about some of those questions. One of the first things to consider is the author. For the purposes of this class and the reflective journals, any article that you use must have a listed author. If it isn't clear who the author is, back away and do not use it. Speaking of the author, one question I want you to look at carefully is, how clearly is the author identified? Is it easy to find their name? Is it easy to find out information about them? If not, you should be very careful about trusting this source. Once you have found out who the author is, there are some other questions you should ask. These questions are designed to help you decide if you should trust this author. Question number 1. Why are they qualified to talk about this topic? Are they an expert or some rando on the internet talking out of their rear orifice? Did they study the subject in school? Do they have a degree in it? Do they work in the field? Do they have direct personal experiences? Have they spent a long time researching it? The fundamental question is, why should you listen to them more than anyone else? If there is no answer to that question, or if the answer is something like, because they say what I want to hear, then you should back away and find another source. Question 2. Are they treating the subject honestly and objectively? I don't mean are they unbiased or have they not chosen a side. You can be biased and still be honest. Here are some things to look for. Do they say where they got their information from? Bonus. Do they give links to where their information is from? If not, be suspicious. If it is an opinion article, how do they talk about what people who disagree with them think? Do they even mention the other side? If not, that is a bad sign. When they do talk about the other side, are they being snarky and dismissive, or are they carefully thinking about the other side's ideas? This tone tells you a lot about whether the author is being objective. If they can't be respectful towards people they disagree with, then they likely are not thinking carefully about the facts and are just reacting. Question number 3. If it is an opinion piece, are they trying to persuade you using facts or emotions? Be very wary of a source that seems more emotional than fact-based. Question number 4. If it is not an opinion piece, are you sure that it is not one in disguise? Look at the way they present information carefully. Are they pretending not to be choosing a side, but secretly making one side seem so much better to trick you? Do they ask you to draw your own conclusions or make up your own mind? Be very careful. This is a common way to trick people. After you've considered the author, you should consider the information provided. You want to do your best to make sure that you're getting up-to-date, truthful, and reliable information. This can be hard to do since you are not an expert on the topic and are trying to learn about it. Here are some things to consider. Question 1. When was this written? Obviously, being old does not make something wrong, no matter how much you tell your parents that it does. However, you should be looking for information that is as up-to-date as possible, so look when it was published. Again, being old does not equal being bad, but do keep the dates in mind. Question 2. How old is the evidence in the article? If you find an article written last year, but it only mentions evidence from 20 years ago, that should make you a little suspicious. Of course, this isn't inherently a problem. I mean, if you are researching a historical topic, then the primary sources will be quite old. Just watch out for sources that seem like they're ignoring new information or new research, especially on scientific or social issues. If you're researching, for example, global warming, and the article only mentions studies from the 1920s, that is a bad sign. It means that the author is ignoring a great deal of recent research, so it is hard to trust their conclusions. Question 3. Does the article make it clear where their information came from? Do they just say things are true, or do they tell where they got that info from? Anyone can say anything. A trustworthy source makes it clear where the info comes from. A really good source provides direct links to that information. Question 4. Does the information they provide fit with what you already know and have already researched? If you can spot one thing they got wrong, there are probably other errors or lies that you don't notice. Be careful. In addition to the author, I want you to pay attention to where an article was published. Who was willing to put the article on the internet can be a real clue to the biases it might have. If it is on a blog or a self-published website, or if it is not easy to find out who owns and runs the website, this is a bad sign. Don't put much faith in it. Google the site and see what people have to say about it, especially if it is a site that you have never heard of. I mean, if you're researching a sports question and it is published on ESPN.com, that's a good sign. If it is published on a site you've never heard of, you should find out more about them. This is especially true for those of you doing political or social issues. If you're reading something on an extremely conservative or extremely liberal site, you should be aware of that and take it into account. You should be more suspicious of the information provided and check it carefully. So, now that you can choose more sources, the Weekly Reflective Journal gets a little more difficult. Basically, each week you have 3 choices. 1. Read an article from one of the databases, just like we've been doing. 2. Read a factual article that you find on the internet or in a physical publication like a book or magazine. 3. Read an opinion article that you find on the internet or in a physical publication like a book or magazine. When you open the Reflective Journal assignment, you will see this page. Fill in which type of article you read, and then go to the correct page for that type. The questions will be slightly different depending on which type of article you read. For example, for an opinion article, it will ask how the author tried to persuade, but for a factual article, it will not, since that shouldn't be persuasive. Answer all questions honestly. If you're reading an article that is not from one of the databases, you should be prepared to show that you have made sure it is a good source. I'm afraid there is no sponsor this week. Apparently, I don't bring enough viewers, so bye.